Welcome back. Now, there are higher chances of employees getting salary hikes in 2021. The Aon Salary Increase Survey shows that 88% companies intend to hike salaries in 2021 versus 75% companies in 2020. Now, this survey also projects an average hike of 7.7% this year compared to about 6.1% in last year. Now, the sectors which are projected to see the highest salary hikes include e-commerce, venture capital, high-tech and information technology, ITES and life sciences, and on the other hand, hospitality, restaurants, infrastructure and engineering services are projected to see the lowest hikes. To discuss the report further, I have with me Nitin, Sethi, the CEO of India and South Asia at Aon. Nitin, thanks so much for joining us on the show and taking time out for us. A 7.7% salary hike projected for the year. What were some of the most interesting findings from your survey, and what do employees have to look forward to after a tough year?
No, pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me over. So now, to step back, we have about 1,200 companies participating in the survey, so it's a pretty large sample set. We've been doing it for 25 years, so we've been doing some trending analysis to know how have previous cycles impacted current cycles and what would potential growth trajectory over a longer period of time look like. Now, the first thing of the survey is that most companies, like you said, 88% of them believe that 2021 is going to be a good year. In fact, 92% companies in the survey believe that they see either growth or stabilization happening in 2021, and this is reflective in salary increase numbers of an average of 7.7%. Now, a couple of interesting things. I think what happened last year was that before the pandemic came in, a bunch of companies actually gave out increases in the month of January. Typically, these are global multinationals that have calendar year Jan to December. And as these companies gave out increases, they did not have COVID in their perspective, and their increases were pretty, upwards of middle to high 7%. These are companies that are likely to give lesser increases this year as compared to the rest of the peer group. Again, companies that gave out increases in Q4 last year, which is October, November, are likely to give lesser increases this year because they did not go through a process of pay cuts, pay freezes as much, because they had reached a point in time where COVID was largely or in some bits and pieces behind them. Companies that are likely to give out higher increases are ones that have their typical pay cycles in the month of April and June. And their numbers are about 1% higher than the others.
Okay.
Now, having said that, the other group of companies that you yourself mentioned are likely to have higher increases are startup organizations, venture-backed firms. For many of these companies, or I would say rather for all of them, 2020 has been a pretty interesting year. For many of them, it was a year that actually helped them experiment, accelerate their businesses, repivot to different business models. They've continued to invest in talent, or I would say talent that actually drives business. And their increases are in double digits at about 10.1% on average. And then some of the other sectors which genuinely need, full-scale economy to kick in, I would say retail, travel, hospitality, though giving increases higher than last year, are hovering between 5 to 6.5%.
Okay. Nitin, the 7.7% number for the year, how does it compare with the past crises we've seen? I believe this is the lowest we've seen, even lower than in 2020. That is, the 6% odd number is even lower than the global financial crisis. I wanted to get a sense, does it factor in the inflation as well? Do you have a real salary increase in that sense?
Yeah. So, interesting question. What happens is that in India for the last decade and a half, typically inflation's been an important data on the table, but not an influencer in terms of what salary increases are. Because India's largely been driven by a supply and demand situation. There has been greater demand than supply, and that has led to salary increases for many years. For literally a decade in the past, our increases were in double digits. But now, as salary increases over the last 4 or 5 years have stabilized to, between 7 and 9.5%. It was last year, to your point, that for the first time ever, they touched 6.1. We see a gradual increase in salaries back to, I wouldn't say double digits, but, this year at 7.7. And, if vaccination drives, business sentiment continues to remain up, we think there could be another 0.5 to 0.75% increase on this in the coming year.
So when do we get back to those double-digit increments that you were speaking of? How long before that returns?
Yeah, I don't know if that's good news or otherwise. I think obviously double-digit increases is something that everyone wants on the table on their letters. But I think India's reached that point in time, Ritu. I don't think we're likely to see double-digit increases in average across industries.
Okay.
Our pay levels compared to where Western economies or emerging economies in Southeast Asia were pretty low. But I think through most of 2005 to 10, 12, with double-digit increases, especially as senior and middle pay levels are reasonably competitive. So I don't think India is going to see double-digit increases again, in spite of the fact that, we are kind of accelerating towards what most economists would say is growth this year, which could range between 11 to 13.5%. In fact, most economists now predict that India is at near pre-COVID levels from demand perspective, and hopefully there's no second surge on the virus, and we're able to pull through and deliver well.
Nitin, quickly, since we've completely run out of time, how does India compare with some of its peers with the kind of hike that's projected for 2021? Very briefly, in a sentence or so.
Yeah, sure. It's much higher than the others. And that's historically because Indian salaries have been higher than most other countries more often than not. And India continues to remain a robust growth market, and where supply will continue to not meet demand requirements.
All right, Nitin, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your thoughts with us.